Well, hello, children. We have a very special show in store for you today.
As a new creation! It's the dawn for your salvation and redemption! I'm believing in here! Bible said, you feel
All right, get your Bible out today and turn to Matthew chapter 5. Matthew chapter 5. Many people know Matthew chapter 5. In fact, many of your liberal churches, they go to Matthew chapter 5, and that's the basic doctrine of their whole church. That's about all they ever talk about or preach about. And it's just so sad that they don't rightly divide it. There's nothing wrong with going to the Beatitudes.
We all come from apes, but I don't throw ape in every conversation. Use ape to define myself. Use ape as an excuse to defecate in my thumbless mitt and then hurl it at you. I'm sorry, did I just splatter you with wet feces? I'm sorry, I have a very rich ape upbringing, a strong ape heritage. I'm an ape.
But look, we're
Well, yeah, Bob isn't real. Mom was a prostitute, and Dad didn't want me. So, um, based on the conversation we had last night, I figured we just could continue that if anybody wanted to, and tell me, why Bob has forsaken me. Why did he put me on this planet? Um, to be damned. Um, but if nobody wants to talk about that, we can talk about something else. I've got a short time, but only a short time. I can't be here very long. Can't do that. No, it's impossible. It's not possible. It's impassable. We can't go there. Otherwise, we could play some slow guitar tunes and get to know one another. But no, I really thought this debate needed to be had. We had a P Town over here last night. Um, it was very civil, but you could tell there were things left unsaid. So I'm just like, okay, when is it? I I want to know where Bob says we can't have abortions. As long as, as long as Bob says we can't have, because I'm pretty sure he said we should kill babies, and I'm over here, I'm advocating killing babies, just like godless sewing was. Yeah, if I can kill the babies, because it's better than letting them grow into suffering adults. Oh, what a thought, huh? Yeah, and it's not going to be a depressing stream. I promise. Nobody's going to be depressed on this stream. Everybody's going to be, very happy. They're going to be loving life and living large. While they're talking about, the ethics of killing babies or not, if they're talking about it, or it might just be me, rambling on about killing babies. You can donate to the stream. I've got links. Somehow you give money by copying these things or scanning these codes or something. We'll take a quick commercial break.
Lockdown Records presents a Hip Hop Christmas. You'll get such classics as these nuts roasted on an open fire, a sleigh ride in my 64, Annie Up Bitch, It's Christmas, and many more.
buy that
You can't
shit,
get this 2 CD set.
I'm fucking around. I mean, Annie up, bitch, it's Christmas. Yeah, no, I thought that, the conversation we were having last night was pretty good. We'd like to keep it going. I want to apologize to Godless Selling because I got kicked out of the StreamYard at the end there, and then I was locked out of the StreamYard, so I was like trying to get back in, and I was like, man, well, whatever, whatever's whatever, but yeah, we got cut off like mid conversation, but I was also like, I really needed to go to bed. I finally did get to go to sleep again, and finally made it home. So it is what it is. I've got a couple envelopes I need to mail off tomorrow. I'm overdue with the IRS. So life is great, and I appreciate everyone, and I love everything, and I think it's totally worth living.
But so many people say that they want to see the light. They want to be enlightened. They want to dissolve into the light of God. And then when they've done that, all over again, the process goes on, and it blows out those mud balls. And here are planets. And here once again, you're a baby. You're a child. The flowers are brilliantly colored. The stars are gorgeous. The smell of the earth, the sound of the rain, everything is marvelous once again. And once again you see the other, the man, the woman that you love. As if it had never happened before.
I thought I lost my marijuana. I just found it. But anyway, they got rejected last night, and then proposition tonight. I don't know. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. If anybody wants to come in, on for a little while. Otherwise, I'll just leave. It's a rando Sunday stream. But I'm serious about this. Like, it's a hypothetical, but Bob isn't real. Mom was a prostitute, and Dad didn't want me. Then why am I here, man? What's the point of this existence they call life? Said I was supposed to be happy, and then they said it wasn't about me. And they said make other people happy, and that'll make you happy. Tried doing that, and it didn't work out so well. try to make myself happy again. Basically, I just try to play by the rules, but it never didn't work out. No right, no how, you know. Bob, Bob, he ain't real. I mean, we're all looking for Bob, but at the end of the day, Bob, he's a figment of our, imagination. That's right, I said imagination. Tell me I'm wrong. If there is such thing as Bob, in what realm does he come from? Does he come from the multiverse? Does he come from the singularity? Come out of the nether realms? Valhalla? I mean, Bob had to come from somewhere. Bob just couldn't exist singularly, right? Unless he was a singularity, in which case, he would be a singular Bob, and the multitude of Bobs wouldn't even make sense. You'd have to create a finitude of Bob. If any of this is kind of making mathematical, grammatical sense, you would have the finite Bob, and then the infinite Bobs. Shit, I think I lost my train of thought. Hold on. Just want to remind everyone that this product was not designed to be a personal lubricant, and you should never use it that way. It probably says so in the instructions on the back somewhere. I don't know, I can't read them, they're blurry.
In the time of chimpanzees, I was a monkey.
Roshendele brede sikri ita baba retele preetete andolo bobosha endele babosha ibrade brebe breda ibre entele bredeya rasuko di hida bosha mendele brendi kiti namanasa mendele brundi in the handoshe matu entele inti ima atali inta antayaha imana tata yata yata ya rekete bebe.
And that the land of the Unibob, right, where we live under one Bob, there can be no other Bobs. And so wouldn't like why would they try to take Bob's name? Like, if it's just Bob and there's no other Bobs, then why are there so many Roberts out there? I mean, why are there Robertsons? Riddle me this, Batman. Is the son of Bob really a man? And in that case, does he carry his name? No, that doesn't make sense. Let me try this another way. Wouldn't Bob's son be called Bob Jr.? Wouldn't that make more sense than, Robert Robertson? I mean, Jesus isn't even close to Yahweh. They're two completely different things, man. That doesn't make any kind of sense. Why did Yahweh want to kill babies? See if we can find anything here in my Bible. Got a lot of bookmarkers. Ooh, here's a weird picture of Jesus standing with his face turned to you. Like back turned to you, like his face like away. I thought there was a musical. I thought there was an index, but apparently not. Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. Whosoever resisteth the power resisteth the ordinance of God, and they that resist shall receive for themselves damnation. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise for the same. For he is the minister of God to thee for good. But if thou do that which is evil, be afraid. For he beareth not the sword in vain. For he is the minister of God, or avenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil. Killing motherfuckers with a sword. I don't know. Just something random out of Romans. See. So yeah, like this dude was like he totally was about killing people. Like there's no doubt about that. He killed a lot of motherfuckers. I mean, he killed almost everybody at one point. Back when he did the flood and everything. But the other thing is, like he was all about abortion too. God did not condemn abortion as far as I can tell. So I don't know why they're even telling that story. That's just like the bullshit story. They're just half lies and half bullshit. So ignorance does not exempt one from the law or some shit like that. I heard that once from a judge or a cop or something. These people are having way too much fun. You hear that? I hear that. Look, so you should know the law. You should know that God said you can kill some babies. And you should kill some babies. It is righteous to kill some babies. Yet thou shalt not kill except for babies. Prove me wrong. All right. Well, this is unexpected. I thought P-Town would be improved. All right, Mikey.
Yeah, hi, Trusty.
Welcome again.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for dropping by our watch party over there, Schindler's List. That was interesting.
What's up, brother?
Oh, doing okay. I was planning a few streams this week. Planning on, well, I'm going to be like part of one stream at least on Thursday. Gorilla's going to show the movie Megaforce from 1982. And it's the only movie I ever walked out of in a theater with my parents and the rest of my family. So
it's called Legal Force? Is that what you said?
No, it's called Megaforce. Megaforce.
Oh, Megaforce.
Yeah, Megaforce. Megaforce.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a plot is that it's supposed to be a government-based group of bikers that are supposed to, deliver justice and freedom against tyranny and good against evil. And it has
it's kind of like a Judge Dredd type of thing, but you've got like a group of.
Yeah, it's kind of like Judge Dredd, but it's weird. I mean, it has Barry Bostwick in it. A bunch of other people you probably recognize from like the Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai or things like that. But my dad thought it was such a terrible movie Then after 15 minutes, we all left. That's like I said. That's the only time I ever walked out of any film. And I mean, I've seen bad ones, and I don't know what it was about this one, but my dad said it sucks. It's horrible. And what made him even worse, angry about it, was a week later, Siskel and Ebert did, when Siskel and Ebert still existed in the 80s, from Chicago, they did their review, and both of them said no to the movie and said it was a pass. Don't go see it. And my dad said, oh crap, damn it, we've already seen it, wasted our money. That was what my dad said. So.
Now, I remember sitting through like the first half of the Titanic, waiting to see the Kate Winslet's boobs, and then like I was like 2 Mountain Dews deep, and I had to pee like a racehorse.
Oh
And so I was like, and then at the end I was like, that was totally bunk. Like this whole thing has been a sham, and yeah, I've never looked at movies the same way ever since.
Yeah. Yeah. That's when they were in the cabin in Spain here. Yeah.
Yeah, the car. Yeah, I think in the they make love in the car. The first scene, the that stowed away. It's like a if what's a
I,
it's a Ford Model T. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
yeah. Right.
Something like that. I don't remember. Yeah, one of those cars, one of those old timey cars.
It was a Ford Model T. They made love
Yeah.
in it. Yeah. Okay. I think they could have done without that. I'm serious. Come on. They didn't need it. They didn't need a nude scene, and they certainly didn't need a lovemaking scene in it. It was pointless. It's all about the boat, right? It's not supposed to be about the characters. It's supposed to be the fact that this ship was unsinkable, or so they thought. And then,
Well, I hear they think that I think they try to drive that dynamic in there. So they wanted to make that because the whole story of Jack and what's her face, like none of that ever happened. They just had to put this whole dynamic relationship going on in the middle of it to make it like more dramatic than it already is. Like you
of
couldn't
course.
just put normal people, like they had to be these like crazy like outlandish aristocrats, that are having this weird feud, and then this vagrant guy in the middle of it, like.
Right. Well, let me ask you, Trusty. Do you think that the film could have done without love scenes, or a love story?
Well, I think they could have had the love scene. I just think they could have made it between two normal characters. It's like they just made the two most unlikely characters to be on the boat, like at the time. Like, oh, we're gonna have the most like outlandish romance, and then it's all gonna come crashing down on the boat that was that couldn't sink. So it was like, okay, like so it's almost like a pun, really, like when you look at it, like you can almost look at it as dark comedy in that way. Like, and I don't know if James Cameron has that type of a sense of humor. I'd look at it as like a dark comedy. Maybe look at movies that way. Like,
Right.
it's like, oh
You
yeah, this could be
remember?
like the best possible, scenario, and everything goes completely wrong. And it's like we're just gonna outline these two characters who are just in the most unlikely situation. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Well, okay. There was I don't know why Cameron thought there'd be a dynamic between Winslet and DiCaprio. I didn't quite understand that. Now, granted, DiCaprio is supposed to be a guy, who's down there in the lower decks, and then you have Winslet, who is supposed to be the top of the line, elite, rich people, who would take a boat tour like that across the ocean with no second thought, no compunction. And just for the two of them to get together, it just seems so, like you said, so unlikely. There's another movie that was similar to that Winslet was in. She paired with Jim Carrey, and that was the Eternal, Thoughts in the Spotless Mind.
Oh
And
yeah,
I was
love that
like,
movie actually. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, how unlikely is that? Jim Carrey is supposed to be a comedian. He's supposed to be, a laughable kind of like, doofus. And then he gets hooked up with Kate Winslet, and you're like, what?
I think
you
that kind
know?
of ends up being the idea at the end. Like he's not even sure if he's dreaming, right? Which is the whole premise of the movie. Like you can't even tell which part is real at that point.
Yeah,
So
he's got no concept, right? I get it, totally get it. Well, and then okay, and then there's another movie I can give an example of too. The movie Click, which had Adam Sandler, and who's a comedian, and then you have Kate Beckinsale, who was in those underworld movies, and as a Dracula type, woman, vampiress or whatever. And I thought, how unlikely is that? It's supposed to be comedy, I get it, but then you have, Kate Beckinsale, who has to basically throw out her accent, to sound like a normal American, and then you have somebody like Christopher Walken, who to this day, I still think he's the best part of that whole film. A Click is he just acts like himself, he acts normal, but he's supposed to be the angel of death, in the film. Supposedly, it's like ta ta ta. That's when I find out what he is. But until that, I just thought that's another unlikely pairing. How do they come up with people like this? I don't get it. I seriously don't get it. I mean, it
yeah, that
doesn't
was a
affect.
great premise for a film. I mean, Christopher Walken, he just has that aura about him. Like he's not a character actor, but he's somebody that you can typecast in that way where he can just fit into a role and be like, you know who could do that? Christopher Walken. He doesn't have to do anything special. You just say the lines and be yourself. You will make the
Right.
part, you know. But but yeah, I definitely I can see what you're saying with that one. That was I don't know, Adam Sandler, I think he's a pretty funny guy, but some of his movies could be hit or miss.
Yeah.
Um,
Sorry. Go ahead.
but I think Click was one of the better ones. It had a really really strong message behind it, and it was very well made.
Yeah, it was. It's actually our favorite. That's my Suzanne and I really enjoy Click. That's why we bought it because we love that film. It's just wonderful, and it makes you think. It does. It doesn't have a single bad moment in it. I don't think. I think every moment is good. It's laughable. It's dramatic when it has to be. Yeah, it's one of those that I think got overlooked or underrated when it first came out in theaters, but later on, when you have it in DVD and Blu-ray, it's so much better. It's just a great movie. Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, there's some parts that I mean, that one, Big Daddy, they drive home with me, because it's personal. I grew up around that a little bit, and then I watched, well, especially Big Daddy. I watched that with my kids, and so like being in the situation I am now, like yeah, it's a tearjerker. But still just like a really well made film. But I remember that that came out when I was in my younger years, so like grew up with it and then watched it with my kids. So Adam Sandler is kind of that. I'm that of that generation.
Yeah, he's Adam Sandler is kind of a different breed of actor and comedian. He has his own way, and it appeals to a lot of people. I get it. I think that when he did, I don't like to say it, but when he did movies like The Waterboy, uh, or Mr. Deeds, or even Happy Gilmore, uh, I questioned whether he deserved to be in those films because for some reason he just didn't have. I don't know. He didn't really have the appeal. It didn't seem like he was. I think he was trying to find himself, maybe, but I don't think he really had that star appeal yet. But then when he came out with Click, it was just like, wow, he changed like 360 degrees, from what he did before. So
Well, I think part of it was trying to find that dramatic element, right? Like, and you can kind of see that evolution throughout his career where he's trying to be a silly comedian, but he also wants to have some serious you know a moral message behind his movies, and usually that ends up kind of centering around parentage in one way or another. So that resonates with me, you know.
Yeah. Oh, so I was going to question when I came in. Thank you for allowing me to come be a part of this. Uh, I was questioning. It says here, Mom isn't real. Mom was a pasta-toot, and Dad didn't want me. Changed my mind. I was curious about that. That's why. I just
Yeah, so that's the I was talking about this in a stream earlier, the ad absurdum argument, to where I
oh
give like
boy.
the most extreme examples of, okay, well, if I
Oh
you why do I
oh.
exist? And we were talking about that a little bit last night, and it got a little bit soggy, so I didn't want to push it, but I have been talking about doing that kind of debate for a little while. So okay, let's push it a little
I
further.
like. Yeah, I know that you and I are both definitely open minded, and I love a spirited debate. I really do, and I'm really pleased that I met Godless, you know, Spending or whatever his name was. I thought, yeah, this guy has a thing to say, and and I think that it's important to value everyone's opinions. Uh, you know, and I do. I value everyone's opinion because somebody, you know, if I learned this early on as I was growing up. I learned that you can put 10 crazies in a room, but if one person knows why they're there and they're not crazy, then the other ones will follow that person and say, you know what, you're right, let's go. It's, it's
Well, this seems to be the most important question to a lot of
that,
people, and they want a simple answer.
that
Why am
everyone's,
I here? What is my purpose? Why am I here? I mean, it seems to be like the most basic question that everybody has a variety of answers for, and nobody has a good answer for. And so I think that's where the question of faith comes in, and
oh, of
exactly
course.
what is our purpose, and how and why did we come to be.
Yeah, of course. You know what, the way that okay, the best way to describe it in my instance is I'm turning 58 years old next month in September. And in those 58 years I've been alive on this earth, I think I've seen just about anything. And I followed people who I thought, had a purpose in life. They were meant to do, certain things. And I know that I have a purpose, but I haven't reached it yet. My wife believes the same thing. We haven't reached our purpose yet on Earth. We don't know what it is yet, but we know we haven't achieved it. We know we haven't come close to it. And you see other people that pass away around you. They might be older than you, or they might be younger. But then you question them. You say on their lives. You say, well, did they achieve their purpose? Like, I was in high school when I graduated. A year later, a young lady who I was friends with all of a sudden just dies in a car accident. And the car accident was a drunk driver was behind the wheel and killed her outright. And I said, well, this was an up and coming student. She was going to be, you know, we knew what her purpose was when she was going to graduate, and we knew what her future was going to be. And then that's all taken away in a heartbeat. So I don't think people can actually determine what their purpose is until it comes. Or if they know what they want to do, they want to keep it, uh, to them just to themselves or to just a certain number of people, Because if something does happen, and it eventually will, it might take away, what they plan on doing, or it might just say, that you weren't able to fulfill your purpose. So I hope that explains some of it, I guess.
No, I get that. The other interesting thing though is like in the story you mentioned, and there's many like that. The nature of existence, like in the story with the drunk driver, it is likely that that person, that drunk driver, probably survived with minimal injuries. They could have killed a carload of people, but they themselves, being intoxicated for whatever reason, would survive the crash, right? Like, and
Right.
that's more common than not.
Yeah.
And
The
it,
fact
it
of
doesn't
it,
make sense if God is a just God to me that they would kill four innocents and leave that drunk driver to suffer for that sin. You know what I mean?
yeah, I get it. Yeah, what's appalling is that you watch, right? You watch a whole bunch of people say die in a natural disaster, but then you come across afterwards, you come across someone who's, totally cynical, totally doesn't care, and that was the person who was actually able to survive the disaster, but the others didn't. So you question that too, question that kind of logic of, a justifiable God would do that, you know. But there has to be a reason. I mean, I don't like to question God at all. That's and neither does Suzanne, and that's our choice. We know there's a God. We believe in a God. You know, and we don't feel like it's right for us to question, but we do know that we always ask, of God, what is my purpose here? What is our purpose? What are we supposed to do?
So
Have we done it yet? That's our
on that
question.
note,
Yeah.
um, you know what? Actually, I had something, but I lost my train of thought. And we have somebody else in the back, so let me bring them in.
Okay.
Who's this? Oh, it's Hillary's emails. All right, excellent.
Hello.
Hey. Hi,
What's up?
Hillary's emails.
Hello. Yeah, it what you're saying I totally agree with. Doesn't make any sense. And when you try to even statistically go, oh well, God tends to statistically save these types of people versus these type, it doesn't seem like he's really got any plan.
Or he may just have a hidden one, Hillary, but it's not known. It's That's
Right.
why that's supposed to be mysterious. That's the inkling that we're all supposed to believe is that it's a mysterious thing that we're not meant to comprehend or dissect.
But wait.
Uh,
To back it up there, though, if there's a plan that we're not supposed to understand, why do all these guidebooks exist? Like, why would he put out all of these templates for how we're supposed to behave that are contradictory, but we're not supposed to know in the first place? Like, is it all just an illusion? How do we end up with these contradictory texts of how we're supposed to live and how we're supposed to worship? Like
it's
that's what doesn't make sense to me. And I was asking last night, like, how do I discern, even if I believe in Allah or Yahweh, whether it's through the Torah, through the Quran, or through the Bible?
right.
How would I even get that far? And I
Well,
don't
the
want to
one
get,
thing,
I don't want to dig
yeah.
too deep on you there, Mikey.
Oh yeah, no, that's fine. You're not really. What? Okay. What I've always thought about is uh, that uh, I I can respect that other people have either similar or different belief systems. Firstly in themselves, and then whoever else they're associated with, whether it's their family, friends, what have you. Um, what I question is, if I'm still here and I know that there's something coming, but I don't really know what it is. I just know that it's there. Is that enough? Thing. I would like to know if there is a plan in place, what's going to happen. I would. But since I don't know that, and I don't have the foreknowledge to know that, you know, it does kind of leave a gap. It leaves a hole. Like you just don't know what's ahead. That's the problem. And
Well, that
maybe it's
almost
meant to be
sounds
that
like
way.
you would be open to any interpretation as long as it led to the one God that we're talking about. Right?
Well, yeah,
We're all talking about the same God, so but
we're
people who believe
we're
in
talking
another
about the
God
same.
might be mistaken.
Well, no. What I'm saying is that other deities that other people believe in may all end up being the same one God. It's just interpreted differently. I understand when people read the Bible. Like I'll just say for myself, I've read it a total of 5 times in my lifetime, from cover to
Hmm.
cover, every chapter, every verse. And I can honestly tell you that to this day, I still don't understand its full, and still can't comprehend its full meaning, even after I've read it that many times. And I'm sure there's scholars, theologians, uh, professors. I'm sure there's people that have read the Bible maybe countless times,
Hmm.
maybe I'd say to say 100 times, and still don't get it. So you see, I don't feel so bad because if I interpret it one way myself, then there's someone else who's probably much more knowledgeable than I am, and they interpret a different way, and they could be right, or they could be wrong, and I could be right. So you see,
But
it all comes down to that. It's how
but
people
that's the
interpret.
problem.
Yeah, that is a
That's the
problem. I
problem.
understand.
Why
Yeah.
why why would a divinity who writes this book so that we could know him send us all this delusion where everyone understands differently? I mean, wouldn't it have been better just to send nothing at all, or one very clear, concise message?
Well,
I mean,
we
love your
do
neighbor as yourself would be a pretty good, just very short message.
by itself. Yeah, I agree. Well, and here's the other thing I question too. What exactly is free will? Free will can be interpreted several different ways, right?
Agreed.
And that's what God gave us, free will, right? That's what we all have.
Well, first
So
you have to define it. First, you have to define free will, and then you have to prove that it actually is something that we have. Because the way that,
exactly,
yeah,
yeah, exactly, Hillary. And you make a great point. You have to be able to define what it is. Then, if you define what it is, you know. So, I
Hello?
trust the podcast.
yeah, we saw your
Yeah,
little
I just saw
video
your
real
podcast thing
Sorry.
real
come up.
quick.
We saw your podcast thing.
No, yeah, I was trying to
So,
unmute and it hit that. I need to
Okay.
switch this. I wanted to chime in on that as like how we define free will and um, as far as upbringing and rearing and how much we can call it free will when people are raised within a certain sect or faith, right? And how much free will do they have once they've been indoctrinated at a young age? Because I think that gets skewed. You say, oh, well, yeah, you have all the knowledge you need, but you're going to be shunned by your community and by your family if you choose to exercise your free will. So, are you really free to do that? And I don't think that's the case.
yeah, I agree there, Dusty. Like I said, when I first heard the words free will, I thought it's like what Hillary said. I wanted to define, well, what is free will? I wanted to define that. And then the second thing I wanted to do was see how free will would adapt. You know, what would my definition of it and my interpretation of it actually adapt to how I wanted to live my life, my lifestyle. how I wanted to do it. And I know that people make mistakes, but that's not truly by choice. They make mistakes because they want to go forward and examine and take take the risk. They want to take the dare, and you know it's like some people say, if you're afraid to take a dare or a risk, then why are you still here? Why do you want to be around? You just most people just want to take that leap, and I agree with that. I think that it's important to be able to define yourself, and then make your choices based on how you feel and what you're
Okay.
given. Yeah. So
So you cut out just a little bit there, but I think I get what you're saying. But it sounds to me like, in your view, like free will is almost a dare. God is daring you to disobey Him. Like that's almost sounds like a synopsis of what I just heard. I don't know if that's what you heard, Hillary's, or
Say it again.
it sounds
yeah,
like
I think it's partly
the
true.
notion of free will is a dare for you to disobey God or worship the wrong God. Like that's what free will would be in that context.
Oh.
Yeah, it has a lot to do with dare, but it also has a lot to do with choice, as you said. So it's a dare, it's a choice, like I said. But everyone's different. It's their own interpretation. I don't think anybody thinks the same way when it comes to defining, like Hillary said, defining free will. What is free will?
I,
Everybody
I
has a
think
different definition.
I think that Muslims would agree that it's a dare, that you're supposed to be a slave to Allah, and so if you don't, like, you're stepping out of line and you're going to get punished.
Right, which is their concept, and I'm sure that's their belief system.
Yeah.
What about the okay? Well, let's try another one. What about the Buddhists? What do Buddhists have to believe? What's their free will
Uh,
interpretation?
I don't think there is any. There is no free will in Buddhism, and
Okay.
that's the way that I define it. I don't think that even God could have free will, because God is bound by His nature.
Well,
So
yeah,
that
no, and
so
I
that
believe the Buddhist notion of free will would be that time when you reach the enlightenment, you actually have free will, and up until you reach enlightenment, you don't truly have free will, right?
no,
That's the only time when you can actually attain that.
but once you're enlightened, you can't have free will either, because then you just know it. And once you know it, you can't unknow it. You can't choose to unknow it. So you have preferences, but that's all that you have is preferences and decisions. But it's not a free will. It's highly curtailed, extremely limited choices based upon extremely limited knowledge and wrong knowledge in
Yeah,
many cases.
yeah, and don't forget too that when you're first taught this, when you're a child, right, when you're able to finally comprehend and understand, what your parents teach you, right, you're learning from what there's. You first learn from what they tell you, and you
Hmm.
start to formulate it in your mind, and then when you first hear it, say in
You're cutting out really bad.
like
So
I'm Roman Catholic, so the first time I heard the words,
Yeah, we're having trouble
okay,
getting you, Mikey, right now.
you know, free will. So, I mean, I just so Sunday school actually.
We lost just about everything you said for the last
yeah,
minute or
nearly all of
so.
it. I heard Roman Catholic, and
Oh
that was one of
yikes!
the
I'm
very
sorry.
few things.
Okay, like I said, I'm Roman Catholic, and the first time I really heard the words free will was when I was in Sunday school. That was the first time. When I was able to go into Sunday school, I was able to learn the concept of free will. And then I asked my parents. My parents, naturally gave their own interpretation of what they thought free will was. And they said, but what we tell you probably won't be what you eventually learn about free will. So, like you said, Hillary, it's all in the definition. How do you interpret it? That's and everybody's gonna treat their definition differently. That's what makes us unique as human beings. As individuals, is we're able to in our DNA determine something different than somebody else would determine it, or what their interpretations.
Well, I grew up Roman Catholic, and I was always taught choice, but not free will. I was taught you have just enough choice, just enough freedom to make the choice to either do what God wants or what He doesn't want, and then that other things are entailed from that. But that's the first point. And then
Yeah,
if you choose to go against God, then you have all these other false choices to make.
and consequences.
Yes.
So you realize that what the one thing we all learned was that with any action comes consequences, any kind of action. So if you take it that way, uh, that to me was like, well, then I know what you know, my my set of priorities at that point. I'd say I know what my set of priorities is. If I do this, it's a good thing. If I do this, it's a bad thing. And I set my priorities and I set my choices based on my experience. I can tell if I made a mistake in some respect, I wouldn't make that same mistake again. If I did something wrong, I wouldn't do it wrong again. Because I learned. So yeah, you have to. That's why I say you got to take the leap. Your experience will teach you only so much, but then you got to be able to make that stride, make that step. You know. So,
Interesting. I mean, and I hear where y'all are coming from. Like for me, it's weird for me because I was raised. I always considered myself lucky to be raised in a secular home, but at the same time, it gave me a lot of doubts. And when I asked about religion, people usually would tell me, "Find out for yourself." And so I was drawn towards Catholicism because my family was mostly Catholic. But that ended up kind of actually turning me away from religion. And it wasn't until I found like other evangelical sects and things like that that I started kind of getting drawn back in. Um, but other than that, I was turned towards like secular forms of Buddhism and things like that that seemed to appeal to me. And I think all religions tend to follow that similar aesthetic. It's just a matter of how deeply you believe about other things, but for the most part, religion tends to preach a general neighborliness, kindness towards your fellow man, um, unless they violate some law of your religion, which varies from one faith to another, and that always seems just problematic to me. So.
well, what I found out too about religion. Well, the thing is, my dad made a really good point, and I'm sure he probably borrowed from a few other sources, but he always said the three things you really never should talk about is religion and uh, you know politics and then death. And I took that to heart. I said, yeah, that makes a lot of sense in some ways, but there are situations where it might be necessary to discuss one of those three topics. But overall, I've always found that I guess you have to be able. Well, I'm not selfish. I'm not selfish about what I believe in. I will express to anyone if they ask me. I will tell them flat out. This is what I believe. So you know and I don't want to hide it from anyone. I just want to tell them. I just want to say this is how I am. This is me. You know, except for who I am. Just you know, but but don't use like I said, don't use any of the other three topics to base your opinion of what type of person I am. It's just a I'm happy with who I am, and I always will be, and I'm not afraid to express that. And I just hope more people would be willing to uh, be that unselfish. I wish they were, but there's not a lot of people that are that way that I've seen. I mean, that I've encountered just myself. But I don't know about you, gentlemen. You've never come across people like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I respect you as well as your opinion. And what's up? Welcome, Sammy, 420 Atheist. Good to see you.
Hey, we're
Yeah.
20 atheists.
So what's wrong with me then? Because my three favorite things to discuss is religion, politics, and life and death. All of the three untouchables. I love it. Can't get enough.
Death.
I always tell that people when they ask what do you talk about on your YouTube channel, everything you're not supposed to talk about at the dinner table. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
I think it's fiery.
It's really bad, actually, in Australia. That's like a cultural thing here in Australia. Is you do not talk about religion or politics. You do not ask someone their political leanings, and you do not ask someone about their religious beliefs. And I hate it. I fucking hate it. No one wants to talk about it in Australia.
Yeah, that was my point. Is that a lot of people are keeping their uh, beliefs to themselves, and I think that they're actually denying denying others knowledge of what's out there. I think it's a personal, selfish thing. Uh, but like I say that's my
Yeah,
opinion. Yeah,
yeah.
and
No, I agree with that.
yeah,
There's something lost if we stop discussing, any particular category. Like, let's be honest.
absolutely.
And I
Yeah, I know
think
you probably.
the uncomfortable ones are usually the most important.
Yeah,
Right, and they don't want to discuss it. Usually, it's the ones I think who are in power, who are the ones who want to take the discussion off the table. Because they said, "Oh, well, we've got resolution on X issue," right? And to them, that means that they've won the debate, and they're just trying to silence the other people at the table. And I think that's really like the way it goes down. Like, you take that dynamic down to the family level, and that's oppression within the household, and you've seen it take place like on various levels throughout generations. So we see they silence the women, they silence the children, and then you get a patriarchal society, and then you take it the other way, and and it's not just a singular dynamic. Like, it can be done in a multitude of directions, but um, either way, when it becomes non-democratic, all of a sudden you have this seeming bustling of the victors. They're saying, "Look, we don't want to talk about it anymore. We won the argument. Just shut your faces." And
Mhm.
and that's usually like the way oppression happens, right?
Yeah.
well, yeah, because they take away your right to question. I always found out in school that I learned more when I questioned what was taught to me in books or what was told to me in classes. I learned a lot more when I questioned. That showed that I was willing and able to step up above the rest of the classroom and say, "Look, I don't think this is right. I don't think it's true." And I think that's what early, and I'm just talking about, in my era, it was like, the 70s and 80s. I think it's just what teachers and professors wanted to hear was somebody being bold enough to say, "Hey, wait a second, that's not right," or "that fact is not correct," and question those things. I was always taught that. I was always taught question what you hear, question what you listen. That's the most important to me.
I think that's interesting, Sammy. You see that
Question
dynamic
everything.
more in
That's what
Australia.
we're
I think we have kind of we're in a competition here, the Aussies and good old us, about who's a little bit more dick swinging crazy on the global scale, because the two of us we're in competition there, right? We're kind of neck and neck.
Yeah, no, I think you guys are winning by a long shot, but that's just because there's so many more of you guys, and you're polarized. Like you wouldn't see in Australia a whole bunch of religious, a bunch of Christians protesting anything. Like we don't, you don't see it like you do in the States. You don't see protests against abortion, and people just, whether they agree or not, they just keep it to themselves. But I don't think that's a good thing. That people in Australia, we're too ready to just lay down and whatever the government says,
Yeah.
Oh, new law, we're not allowed to do this now, just won't do it.
A
No one
great example of
questions,
that,
no one fights back. You at least you guys fight for what you believe in.
Yeah.
But I'll show a great example of that. Captive Desk over on his channel was doing a roast of Ken Ham. And Ken Ham, notoriously an Aussie, came over to the U.S. because he felt he was oppressed in Australia. So and he runs the Ark Encounter, and so that was a great video. But you get shit like that. You're just like, okay, so we're still on top as far as
And that's the thing. Like he just couldn't get a foothold in Australia because we were just like, dude, you're a fucking idiot. Like regardless of your belief, sort of thing. You
funny,
are.
I know another story.
Human.
There's a black metal artist. They're like Norse pagans or whatever, and he's a fucking neo-Nazi, and so he got arrested in Germany, and he fled on bail in Germany to the U.S. He ended up getting held in the U.S. for like 9 years, waiting for extradition back to Germany on like a 5-year charge or something. So we fucked him over too. But it's all based on Nazi propaganda shit and an extradition treaty. But the point is, like, if you think you're going to come to the U.S. to flee political oppression, I mean, think again, because we're not as tolerant as it seems.
It depends on whether it's one of our allies or enemies. If it's one of our allies, we'll send them back. If it's one of our enemies, we'll say, "Oh, sure, come on."
I was
like if they were fleeing Russia or China or North Korea.
Like, what's your take on Assange, Hillary's?
I think he's a hero.
You do, yeah. That's good. So do I. But that's a good example, that America's. Is he back in America yet, or has he still managed to?
I don't think so, but I haven't heard about him for a long time.
No, neither have I.
I thought he was. I thought he was still in Russia.
Is that Assange that's in Russia? I thought he was like in Britain in a Argentinian embassy or something.
Yeah, that's right. Some weird embassy in the UK or something. Man, that dude's fucking had it pretty rough.
Yeah, I'm in the camp that Julian Assange should just be acquitted and freed, but that's just me,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have two friends that live in Australia. two different parts, both ladies, and one of them is very knowledgeable about what's been going on and is willing to question things that happen there, and the other one is just keeps to herself, doesn't do a lot. So you know, it's just the nature of the beast. It's how people are. I guess everybody's different. So yeah.
So, like to go full circle back to where we started from here. Like, who thinks that women bearing children, pregnant women, should just have the full autonomy to abort the pregnancy at whatever stage becomes medically or non-viable, or like so that's like where I'm. Uh,
Well, I don't want to call it a unique experience, but I've encountered someone who, well, let's just say it was one of my exes who encountered a miscarriage, and then there was somebody else who aborted a child, and that just, oh, I'm sorry, but just to end it, I'm torn. I'm very torn when things like that happen, and I went through it. So I really I am pro-choice. I love pro-choice. I love kids, you know, and pro-life. Uh, I am, but it's hard. It's hard to go through those experiences and not be able to feel powerless.
well, I would say you are a rarity as a Catholic who's pro-choice. And yeah, I mean, taking a life is never an easy decision. I mean that should never be taken off the table. It's traumatic for the people who have to make that decision, as well as the people who are tasked to do the deed, right? Like, so that's something to consider, and we should definitely inform people about that. But we shouldn't take it off the table. I mean, that doesn't seem to make sense to me.
Yeah, I I think it's an unanswerable problem. It's one of those. I don't think there is a solution that everyone will agree to ever.
Well, there is no viable answer for 20. It's still debatable. It's still a divisive issue. It always has been. I don't like to discuss it uh, because of that. Because it can divide a lot of people. It can divide a lot of beliefs. It can ruin a lot of lives for people just even uh, putting it out there. But yeah, it's an issue. It's going to exist, and the best way that you know uh, to keep it viable is just to let people know that it is there, and not to ignore it, and just be aware that when their situation comes up, when their encounter comes up, with their experience, how will they handle it? And that's what they need to be prepared for. You know. So
Well, I think even the time that we're living in the last 50 years of U.S. law, has changed the way that people think a lot. Like in Europe, they're shocked when they hear about like the discussion in America, but usually they aren't really told the truth. The issue is about third term abortion or about partial birth abortion. And so at first, the Europeans think that Americans are monsters if they think that abortion shouldn't be allowed. And then when they hear, oh no, it's just, basically when the baby can live on its own or has already been born, that's what the objection is. Well, of course, they should be allowed to live at that point. And so, ever since Roe versus Wade, 100 years ago, what was the penalty for abortion? Like, was it a bigger penalty for the doctor? What was the penalty for the mother? I mean, was it a year in jail? I mean, they weren't actually tried for murder, I don't think. And
Right.
then the way that you phrased
Oh,
it,
by the way, 420 said he had to take a phone call.
okay. The way that you mentioned it, Kevin, if it's no longer viable, and I would need to know what you mean by viable, because the mother no longer wants it, or because if it was born, it would just have such severe problems that it would either not live or have a horrible quality of life.
Right, and I think we draw that. I draw that distinction where some people would say, "Well, is it just the fact that it can't be born, or that if it is born, it may or may not have a quality of life that is preferable?" Right,
Mhm.
and even in that case, you could say, "Well, the mother gives it up for adoption, but then we have no way of knowing what circumstance is going to end up in. So that should be a last resort, right? After
Yeah.
the termination." And I think if we can predetermine that far enough in advance, then the termination is preferable to a baby who is given up for adoption later because of unforeseen circumstances. We say it's just that the mother doesn't want it. I don't see it that way. I see maybe the mother does want it, but the father bails out, 6 months into it, and she has
Yeah.
no other option. Okay. But, if she knows well in advance this man's never going to be involved in this child's life, and she decides for whatever reason
Okay,
to
but
be
that's
forceful and say, well, I'm going to bring this child into this world knowing that it's going to be at disadvantage, well, that's irresponsible on her part. And
is
and the
it?
child probably should have been terminated at that point, based on
Well,
what we know about the
if
significant disadvantage for children born in single parent households.
well, if we make that argument, then we should probably abort all children to single parent households. Any unmarried mother should not be allowed to have children. And any poor family, even if they're a two parent household, maybe we should abort all them too.
Well, yeah, you're reaching with the two-parent household. What do we need, a four-parent household before we? Okay, so I'd say
But if
at the
they're
bare
poor,
minimum,
if
we
they're poor
need
is
an
what I'm saying.
active mother and father in the child's life. If we don't have both of those, the option for abortion is open. But I don't think we should mandate it. I think we should say we
Oh
should
no.
consider the option for abortion
No,
in those
if it's
circumstances.
preferable to terminate a child that is going to be in a single parent house, then I think that should be preferable for everyone. And my issue about the two parent poor family, if you have a
Yes.
very wealthy single mother that's making like 100 to 120K a year in the Midwest or a quarter million on the West Coast, then how is that person at more of a disadvantage than a two parent couple making 35 grand in
Well, it's not about the parent though. It's about the child. It's about the well-being of the child and the potential of the offspring, right? In this case, an unborn person, whether
Mhm.
or not they will have a significant advantage to succeed in life, and whether we can see.
Right, and that's my question. Which would have a greater chance of success in life? Being born to a single mother that can put all of her energy into that one child and she's making a lot of money, or two parents that maybe the dad's an alcoholic that's in and out of work, that both of them together only make 35 grand a year as opposed to 125 for a single person. which is really which child is really more disadvantaged.
Well, no, that's. I mean, what you're saying is all circumstantial. I mean, we have to,
Sure.
of course, address individual circumstances, but that's why I say that the option of abortion should never be left out of the equation, right? We shouldn't push it as the first option, but it should be as much a last resort as the adoption was in the other scenario.
Well,
Right?
that's
Like
what people
that's
were
always the
saying
last
for a long
resort.
time.
Abortion, adoption, these are last resorts. And we do want to try to keep the child as long as that's possible. But I think we've become a bit unrealistic in our optimism in certain cases sometimes.
Well, two
And
things. One is that's what they were saying for the longest time when they were trying to legalize abortion. They said safe, rare, and available. But then now it's like on demand, even after the child is born. Let's keep it safe and comfortable until we decide to kill it, according
well,
to
it's
New
only
York
in
State
certain
and
states,
Virginia.
though, right? Like people are
Right.
coming from all other areas of the country to come to places like California
Hmm.
because we have such ready availability, and they have none, right? But
Right.
that's a secondary issue. That's the issue of them not just having access to care in their own provinces.
Well, you're saying access to care, but I mean, when you say what it really is, it's different. Like if I could rape somebody, if it was illegal for me to rape somebody in Oklahoma, but it was legal in Michigan, and then I said, well, it should be legal in Oklahoma because I shouldn't have to go through the hardship of going clear up to Michigan to fulfill my needs, to have my needs met. You see how false that would sound? And I think it's the same way with abortion. I think that a lot of people make claims. You mentioned, if the dad bailed at 6 months, it used to be that a woman had to be married before she could even get pregnant, and if she got married out of wedlock, she was in deep trouble. And
Actually,
now we've
I'm
got,
going to say I think in the U.S. we have a problem. All three of those issues are tied together, but we don't have a federal law that actually ties them with
Mhm.
whether it's a marital issue, a familial issue, and then the issue of women's health in general, and whether or not they have the right to the child in utero, right? And those three issues are totally inconsistent on the federal level, and each state has different regulations on the smorgasbord, right?
I'm
So,
not
like,
so sure.
depending if
When
I
it
were to
comes,
move to another state, maybe my child support obligations would decline, and but my parental rights would, I would have better parental rights, right?
right?
Like and like all those laws vary so widely from state to state that that's like a really big issue.
In
But you
some
can't
ways,
say
but
what a
welfare
family is in
doesn't.
the United States without talking about states' rights.
But welfare doesn't change as much. You can get Section 8 housing in any state, and that's the issue. Ever since LBJ, you know, we've got basically a Lebensborn program where if a woman, basically any age, decides to get pregnant, even if she's like 13, 14, then she's going to get all kinds of government assistance. And the state is now the father rather than the parents. And then she's going to get her own apartment. She's going to get a monthly income. She's going to get food stamps, free health care, probably better health care than she would get from a job if she was working. So there's a lot to that too. But that's my point about after 6 months the dad decides to bail. Well, there's plenty of social safety nets that we've got. There's no reason to kill the kid at that point just because her life circumstances changed. Now, it may be inconvenient for her to do it alone, but she probably should not be having a kid with the guy that can bail
Well, my
because.
question is not about, again, it's not about the parents in this case, it's about the kid. Is it more, if it's inconvenient for her, does that make it inherently inconvenient for the kid? Because if the mom has to carry this kid knowing she's not going to want it,
Mhm.
then is that going to psychologically, physiologically impact the child? And I believe it does. I think
Well,
there's
sure it
there's
does.
research to back that. I mean,
Sure it does. But I try to look at things from other perspectives. Let's say that a person's going to go to prison and they got a 20-year sentence, and they know when they get out, technology is going to change. A lot of the people that they knew are going to either go away or be dead after 20 years. And it's going to be very difficult for them to get a job or even to find a place to live, maybe depending on their offense. And so would it be, morally preferable to kill that inmate rather than to let them out after they finish their sentence?
I'm split on that one. Anybody have an opinion? Anybody else?
Well, I
I think
I
that
don't
the
know. I
prisoners
don't
should be
know.
allowed to self-terminate.
Yeah, I don't know if this is off topic, but I'm going to say one thing that I do believe in is that all life is sacred, and whatever the
All life or all
situation,
human life?
all life, all life
Okay,
is
so
sacred.
you don't swat a fly, you don't swat a mosquito, you
I
don't bleach anything because bacteria is on it.
it's okay. I believe, like I said, I believe that all life is sacred. Um, but again, it depends on the situation. When you say one thing and then, like you said, okay, flies are pests. People will just go and take a fly swatter and kill the fly. Or if it's a mosquito, they'll try to slap it with their hand to try to, hurt it or whatever. I'm afraid of bees. I have a distinct fear of anything that could sting me, like a wing,
Uh,
like a hornet or a bee or
right.
a wasp, or even biting flies, like things like that. So yeah, I'm going to defend myself against those kind of things that scare the shit out of me.
But
But
it's
in that same
sacred.
vein, but yes, I know that's what I mean. But in the same vein, it's a sacred entity, and I think when it comes to what you and Kevin have been discussing, and when it comes to human life, yes, then human life itself is very sacred. And there's going to be situations like like you said, where the mother has a problem, physically or mentally or even spiritually. Does that mean that they're a murderer if they decide to make the choice? Um, that's just the whole thing. It's I think that uh, every every woman out there that becomes pregnant, that child has a right to survive. That child has a right to live. That's why I believe in that. That's why I say when it comes to human life, yes, it's sacred. Very sacred. So I hope that made a little sense.
Okay, and I feel like I see. Um, all right, Hillary's you and me. I see where our
Yeah.
discrepancy is there, and what Mikey said kind of. I was just thinking about this. The question is ethically whether we, if we're going to stomp out life based on the fact that we believe it's going to cause harm to others, right? Like, are we going to stomp this individual out as early as possible, or are we going to let it go as long as possible before they prove that they are indeed a burden on society and others, and then we deal with it, right? Like, is that kind of where you're going with your logic? I think.
Yeah,
I was just trying
I
to get
just
people
want to question.
to think about all of it. I was just trying to get people outside their comfort zone to think about. I don't actually have a point I'm trying to make.
Well,
Yeah,
because I,
and I was.
I'm torn between parental responsibility, the person who creates this life,
Hmm.
right? Like, if you know that your family might not succeed, well then maybe it's more responsible not to start a family in the first place, and then you could justify it, right? But on the other end of the spectrum, you have a person who is very confident their family would succeed, and then they have a divorce, and their child ends up in prison, and then they have to justify their child because of their own actions when they could have prevented it,
Right.
right? And so on what end of this do we come here? Like is it a prescriptive or proscriptive kind of analysis, right, of the situation? And I think that's kind of why it's such a tricky question. It's a slippery slope question. But at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, what decision are you making? Looking forward, because if you find it in hindsight, obviously you're on the other end of that spectrum.
Well, I think that uh, what what's one important thing to be discussed when a male and a female get together. The first off is you know what is our what is our communication level. I've always said that communication is the key to a successful marriage, a successful partnership. Is being able to communicate to another person what uh, your thoughts are, and if they follow with their thoughts being similar to what you're thinking, then that's important because you should be able to communicate those thoughts together. Now, when it comes to deciding whether or not you want to start a family, I think yeah, you have to take all the factors into effect at that time. Your economic factors, your family matters, your backgrounds, uh, your medical history. You know, it's all important. It really is. And until and I think that most uh, couples tend to forget that there is a lot more than just jumping into bed and producing a child. There's a lot more to it, and I think a lot of them are just not aware. They're they're
But
they're either they're either misled by whatever social media tells them, or
Mhm.
they're just not aware of what happens, or they do the act and then they're like, now do we regret it? I just it's so yeah, it is a tricky slope. I totally agree with what Kevin says. It
well,
is.
what you're saying though, and when you said they're not aware, like, and I want to go with that because, I mean, young people are generally not aware of the consequences their actions have, and so we could tend to have young pregnancies and adverse reactions and things from that, right? But the fetus ultimately is unaware of anything. They've made no choices, right? They are completely innocent, and so in
Yeah,
a
because I give
sense,
them the right to take a
it would be more merciful to spare them whatever indiscretions were made by their predecessors rather than to subject them to those indiscretions. Does that make sense? Like,
It
in my
does, but
mind,
it depends upon your philosophy. According to your way of thinking, yes, that makes perfect sense. But there are other people who would argue that they should have the opportunity, that if they want to self terminate, just like I said with the prisoner with the 20-year sentence, if they want to self terminate, then that's fine. But they should be given the option to come into life.
okay, but if they take the option to self terminate,
well, but
we're trying to rate.
the child in that case, I mean, has to have a whole lifetime of their own conflict and suffering in order to even come to that
Well,
decision.
3 or 4
So
years.
it still is an unfair burden on the child.
I don't really think so. I think the first 2 years they have very little ability to think. The next 2 years they're going to have very few memories. So by the time that they're seven, at the latest, I think they should be able to decide to self terminate.
Okay, but if they self terminate, does that consider them a murderer? Do they take away a
In the
human
in the
life?
in the Catholic perspective, it would, but for general, I don't really think that it would. I mean, they are committing a homicide, but murder is a legal issue. So no, in most states they would not be committing murder. Although in Kansas, which is where I'm from, that is considered. If you attempt suicide and fail, you can go to prison for attempted murder. If you succeed, they're not going to prosecute you.
Obviously. You die.
Hey,
That's it.
Sterling.
Hey,
Hey,
Sterling.
what's up, y'all? How y'all doing?
Oh, we're
What's
hanging.
up, Doc? I think we're good. Oh, I love your avatar. That's great.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, this is my guy.
Yep.
I'm going with this guy,
I know he's an intellectual, but I don't remember his name.
Cornell West.
He was on,
Cornell West. Thank you.
He's running for
but he
president.
looks like
Okay.
yeah, but he looks like the guy from the Mod Squad, only with more of a fro.
I,
You
I'm
know who I'm
embarrassed
talking
to.
about?
No, I don't. Sorry.
Okay. Um,
Oh, is that my internet?
No, that's Mikey. It's been messed up the whole night.
Okay.
D.S. Lewis in the side
Clarence
chat.
Williams.
DS is
What up,
right.
homie?
Do you know that actor, Clarence Williams?
DS is
But-
completely right. We've all been sentenced to death. It's just that many of us are currently having a stay of execution.
But yeah, like I want to get back on this subject. What are we talking about? Abortion, it sounded like?
Right.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's preferable and who gets the say and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I'll give my 2 cents if we got a second.
Okay.
Sure. So like, I feel like, it's tough,
Yeah, go
man. It's
ahead.
really, thank you. Yeah, it's really tough. It's like, I feel like what I come down to is that you should have to give consent for another life form to feed off of your body. And that includes people who had unprotected sex. I don't feel like just because you consented to unprotected sex means you consented to having another life form feeding off of your body. And anytime that happens, I think that ideally it should be consensual. And now what I wanted to say was that what's interesting is that in the future, and maybe even, and I've said this before, Ape, on this channel, so forgive me, but what's interesting to me about the conversation is how it'll change in the future. And like with like these what do you call them, like test tube babies, or you know what I mean? And so like
artificial wombs. Yep.
So like, for example, what if the mother no longer has to carry the child? What if the fetus could be extracted and put in this sort of like test tube or whatever they call them, and therefore it's no risk to the mother's safety, and you know what I mean? Like that could really change the whole game if the mother is no longer feeding the child off of her own body, in my opinion. Does that make sense?
But wait. No, Sterling, I've already made this argument, though. It has nothing to do with the mother. It's all about what the best interest of the potential child is going to be. Like, can we say that test tube babies have some percentage of success rate, finding a mate and being productive members of society, or are they just going to fall off the frickin' chart? Are they just going to fall between the cracks like all these unfathered children out here who get pushed through the system?
Well,
that's the question. I don't care if they're born in a test tube, if they're delivered anally, like it doesn't matter. But are they successful? And then
Right.
you can look at numbers for that. So.
Right, and you could look at numbers for that, but at the end of the day, I mean, look, you can't fault a child, an unborn child, for the mistakes of their parents, and I feel like gosh, once you start doing that and saying, hey, look, I don't think that this child's going to flourish. I don't think that this child's going to be successful. They're probably not going to go to college and get a graduate degree based off of some sort of demographic. So then we don't need them. That just kind of like, I don't know. That's not exactly where I want to be, is determining who should be able to live and die. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the point I was making. If we start making these decisions on who can live and who can die based on actuarial charts, like that's going to take us some really dark places that I don't think people. I think that maybe they should look forward into that.
Sure, I hear you. Yeah, and I mean, there's been people who have pulled themselves, up by the bootstraps out of really impossible situations and overcome it and became president of the United States, or something like that. So we and I don't know, it would be a shame if we don't allow them that opportunity.
Yeah, I was no. My wife was telling me something funny. Sorry about that.
No worries.
No, what I was what I was going to say was I have a different. I have some confusion about test tube babies, which is kind of, I guess, the new way that they want to have births. And then they have surrogates that carry the test tube, child, through the 9 months, and then, and then the child is left to its own defenses, basically. unless someone decides to keep the child, or if someone's already planned on doing that ahead of time.
Yeah, we're
But
mixing in a bunch of different technologies here. I mean, a
yeah,
test tube technically is only for the very first stages of growth, like an
absolutely.
embryo, like a zygote. It's
Yeah,
not.
Sure.
They don't even
absolutely.
get to fetus level, and then
Sh-
they've got to attach to a human uterus. But
Well,
Sterling was talking about an artificial womb where you could mechanize the whole process until birth,
Yeah, that'd
and
be
which
hard to.
presumably nobody's.
That'd be hard to justify though. If you have an artificial womb, it's hard to justify. I mean, what would you be able to do? You couldn't really claim, uh,
I could make a
that
clone of
if a child
myself.
is born that way. I understand. What I'm saying though is, you wouldn't be able to attach yourself to a maternal or a paternal figure,
well they
only
would
to a
go
test tube.
they would
To
go
a
straight
test tube.
into the foster system.
Well, or you could have wealthy people. Let's say that, and I'm not saying that I'm wealthy. I don't mean to can be conflating all these different issues, but let's say if it was affordable, that a person like me who didn't want to get married just to have a kid, what my custom order kid. Okay, I want a Jessica Alba, kid, clone, and so then they create it, and then you can raise it just like a child. I mean, they aren't just popping out test tubes full of kids for all over the place. It actually costs a lot of money. So
Sure.
I don't think they'd be making them just to put in the foster care system. I think it'd be fairly wealthy individuals that really want a kid, but for whatever reason can't.
Sure, and I think that's probably true for right now, but I think that in the future, like at some point, it'll be, it might be affordable to the point where society says, "Hey, we're tired of all these abortions, and here's the solution, and we're willing to what does that say? Stupid,
Yeah, stupid
stupid monkey."
monkey.
Okay, yeah, yeah, and society might say, "Hey, look, we're willing to foot the bill." If it means that there's no more aborted babies or fetuses, I should say. Um, and that would be a very interesting time and place to be in, because it would destroy my argument in theory that says that, hey, look, the mother should have to give that consent, because she no longer would. She could just
Yeah,
put it
there are
in.
books written about
No,
what you're talking about, like
and
elders
that's
written
it
about.
wasn't directed towards anyone in particular, but that was good timing because why do we care? What is I mean, when you say society is footing the bill, we're footing the bill for all kinds of things. Like when you're talking about just bringing more non-viable lives into the world and more burdens upon society,
Well,
right? You're talking about more unwed mothers who are going to bring more
well,
children who are going to have to go. So like you're just talking about perpetuating a problem. So I don't understand why you're saying, well, we're just paying to kill babies. No, we're paying to mitigate risk of people having to sustain more burdens in the long term,
Who
right?
said we're
You're
paying?
actually supporting your children's best interest. Like if you already have children, you don't want them supporting other people's children, like you've already had to
Right,
do. That's the American way, right?
I,
Like
right,
at this point,
absolutely.
we've
I
produced
disagree.
more offspring than we can sustain, and we've got this abundance of food, and we're sending it to countries around the world, but we can't feed our own. So there's this whole systemic incongruity, right, that we need to address. And I think that's the deeper issue here. So it's not just about birthing babies; it's about where our money's going and why we're putting it there.
Excellent argument. That's a different track from the way that I was thinking, but I like that argument. Yeah.
Sure, and hey, look, what I'm saying is that, of course, right now, it's not a viable solution, but in the future, it could be to the point where, hey, what if it were affordable to the point where we could fix everybody's problem, which says that, well, maybe not everyone's, because Trusty raised a kind of a new problem, but if for the people who are tired of aborted fetuses, for the people who say that the mother should consent to a life form feeding off of hers, it kind of fixes those. Now, Ape, you raise a good
Well,
question, which is, hey, but what if they're going to be a burden? Well, hey, look, I just don't think we can make that decision. And I think that, if society worked the way that it should, then those children as well would have an equal opportunity. And I just feel like we should focus on giving everybody an equal opportunity, as opposed to saying, hey, look, just because you check these boxes, let's just wipe you out, and so it's easier for the rest of us and we don't have to carry you as a back. I just hate to call people a burden. You know what I mean? It's just, they're people.
Well, nobody in my mind is a burden. Everybody has a reason to live, and everybody has a purpose. And I believe that
You really need to do some visitation at prisons, because there are some people who literally benefit no one. I worked in prison before, and
Right,
they are burdens.
Sure, but like that, I don't think
that's the choices they made. That's the choices they made.
Yeah, but I just was going off of Mikey. You said that you don't think that anyone's a burden and that everybody has their purpose. And to me,
I don't consider them a burden. No,
but based on my work experience, I think that there are people who are burdens who literally, if they died, everyone would be better off and nobody would be worse off.
Totally understand, and you are entitled to that opinion, Killer. You truly are. Okay, what I'm trying to express is in my general experience.
Okay.
And I have been to one or two places that
we can't hear anything that you're saying.
Yeah.
I've been to was the last thing that I heard.
Maybe not a jail, maybe not a prison, but I had to visit them, and they're not.
Mikey, you're cutting out really bad. But yeah, I think we hit a vein of truth there. This is a hard and unfortunate truth. There are certain people who would not. Their non-existence would be negligible to the rest of us, or maybe even beneficial to some. Okay, sure, we can go that route. Right. So again, I'm going with the preventative, not like we should take people out, but hey, if we know this person is going to cause a burden, we can just stop the cycle before it begins, rather than have to deal with all this stuff in the aftermath. Right. And that's the angle I want to stick with. But
sure. But how would we know, though?
Yeah. Well, most of us agree. Oh, sorry, Sterling. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, okay. What I was going to say was, if we were aware of the warning signs, and I think we all agree on this, if we knew of the warning signs of a person and didn't act on that, then that's our fault, because we failed them. We saw the warning signs and we didn't react.
Children can give off the symptoms of psychopathy when they're young and then grow out of it.
Oh, sure.
And people can get rehabilitated in prison and come out and be productive members of society.
Yeah, but if we're trying to talk about people before they were even born, how are we going to screen for that?
That's what I don't know. But Ape was saying if we knew, then we could just relieve ourselves of the burden. But I don't think we could ever know that. What you would be doing is you'd be depriving people of an opportunity for a good life.
I want to stop you there. I think mothers know that, and there's some inherent proof that many mothers know that through intuition, and they have the intuition to have an abortion, and then people talk them out of it through some means, and then you end up with notorious psychopaths, and you have like multiple instances of that. Like, yeah, sure, it's still rare, but I think you could probably get, like, if you did a wider study on it, which is probably not available at this point, because they don't want to suppress. So the point is, I think there's probably more instances of that we could point to. But like Ted Bundy's mother was like, I should have had an abortion. They talked me out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect example.
Yeah, Charles Manson's mom, she was definitely an unfit mother that set him up for a life of failure.
And all I'm saying is,
She
I'm
couldn't
just
have
saying.
known.
Go ahead. Go
You
ahead.
know,
Go ahead.
it's like the same. Yeah.
All I'd say is like, if they felt that way, then it should be their choice. It should be currently like that should have been their choice. And if they allowed someone to talk them out of it, then that was also
Well,
their choice.
what I was going to say was, how
We can't hear anything that you're
it's a
saying.
mystery why.
Yeah, Mikey, you cut out in the crux of what you were saying. So if you want to start again, I don't,
I'm so sorry. I'm so,
It's okay. Maybe refresh and go back or something.
Sterling, when you first came in, I wasn't entirely certain what your stance on abortion is. Are you saying that the mother should be able to decide, no matter what, that she wants an abortion,
Hmm.
or what?
I'm afraid of using phrases like no matter what, but I think that, like I said, my stance is that for you should have to give your consent to have another life form feeding off of yours.
Okay, but that's where we would quibble because, like, I would say that once you commit the sex act, you are taking on that responsibility. Just like if I load a gun, point it at somebody's head, and pull the trigger, I can say, "Well, I don't want the consequences of that," but
Sure.
yet I've done
well,
the act knowing the
okay.
probable consequence.
See, I have a problem. Hillary's you're already infusing the rights of the child in, and I don't believe that's even taken a place at this stage, right? So I would say the mother and the father should have some
They do.
consent in after the act, right? But I don't think the
No, not
child has
after,
a say
before.
so,
No, before the act,
even
they do.
after it is born. But I don't think that we should condone. I'm just saying that prior to the birth, the mother and the father should both be active participants and informed participants in the legal sense in whether or not
Okay, but
they're going to
that's
proceed
where.
in having a child. And I think that's the first
Okay,
step. And we
but
don't have that in all states.
but in my example, do you see what I'm saying? Because you're saying they should be able to decide after the fact. I'm saying they should be informed and consent before the fact. They should know about sex. They should
Well,
have the education. They
let me
should
push.
have access to, in my at least some forms of free birth control,
Oh
both
yeah.
male and female.
Oh yeah. Let me push back though, because like, and I agree with Carol here, who says consent to sex is not consent
Right.
to pregnancy. And if I were to go further, I would say that, like, for example, just because you consent to sex doesn't mean that you consent to having chlamydia for the rest of your life. Right. So like
No.
if you had unprotected sex and you got chlamydia, you could go take 1,000 milligrams of azithromycin and knock it out in 24 hours. So
Right.
you shouldn't have to live with that consequence of
Okay.
chlamydia.
I've got a question.
Sure.
If you caught chlamydia,
Mhm.
no, first off, you knew that the other person had chlamydia. You
I
had
didn't.
sex
I
with
have
them.
never
No, I
No,
didn't.
no, no,
considered
no,
the
no.
ethical implications of
We're about
terminating a
to.
sexually transmitted
But we're
disease.
about
Now
to.
that you
We're about
mention
to.
it, like I've had chlamydia and I went in and I didn't
Yeah.
consider the ethical implications of terminating that life
Yeah.
form.
But
I just did it,
yeah. And
because
But
it
we
has,
know, like
should
yeah.
you
Mikey
have
said,
had?
all life is sacred. So
Yeah.
let me set up the scenario, and then you tell. And it's going to be absurd. It's purposely absurd.
Okay.
Okay, so you find somebody that has chlamydia. You decide to have sex with that person, knowing that you might catch it, and you take no effort whatsoever to prevent it. You end up catching it. Surprise, surprise. And then you can get rid of it, but you have to kill a person in order to cure your chlamydia. Then is it ethical to do that?
No.
Okay, and in this case, it was a fetus instead of, and I'm specifically saying fetus. So, like, because for me, anything less than 12 weeks, it is not really a baby. So, and even up to 16 weeks and even further, I'm willing to go. But at some point, that becomes, well, it was a human life from the point of fertilization. But it just
Exactly.
wasn't. It just didn't have any value to me, as far as I'm concerned. I value all the other people more than the zygote. But at some point, we are talking about a human being, and we need to be able to put some sort of restrictions.
Yeah, and that's why I like to think of it like in a utopia type situation in the future.
Mhm.
What I would hope is that we don't have to come up with this number of like how many weeks or days or hours or whatever. It's just like
Right.
if you don't want it, into the test tube, into the false womb or whatever we call it,
Mhm.
in it goes, and it's just done, easy, done, free, simple. It's no risk to anybody.
Yeah,
Done.
that'd be great.
Yeah, that's the solution that we should be pushing for, I think. But now it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't help with if ape says, hey, look, that child's going to be a burden. Sure, it doesn't solve that problem. In fact, I guess it would make more burdens if that's how you felt about it. But I think that we should tackle that problem too, and make it not a burden for those people.
Yeah, I'm with Carol. I was thinking
I just want
26
to
weeks.
I just want to go ahead.
24. That's good. Yeah, two.
Well,
That's two
I just want to
trimesters.
ask everybody just one question.
Uh huh.
Okay, well, I yeah, and Carol does have some good points. I will say that first. But what I wanted to say to you, gentlemen, is okay. If for say for any reason, uh, if it's okay, if it's a couple that want right, and then if something happens to either the male or the female, medically, which might cause a problem later on, and yet this couple's been trying for children all this time, but then something happens, is that a murder? Now, if it's a couple that doesn't want children, but they end up, uh, by accident or by lovemaking, whatever, have a child on the way, and then you know, both of them say, "Well, we don't want this child." Is that also a murder? You know,
Okay. Well, again,
I
when you
mean
use the
that's
term murder, that's a legal question, and that depends on how the law is written. I don't typically killing an unborn fetus is not considered murder. Occasionally, it is, like if it's during a felony, like a gun robbery or something, and you shoot the mom in the stomach and the kid dies. That would be considered a felony murder. But mostly, it's just a form of homicide. So that's
Yeah,
really
see,
the difference.
I see it that way. I see that when you take the life of a child before you have birthed it, as a mother, you're actually taking on that burden. So, in addition to, I mean, the guilt that you're trying to bestow on this child's life, right? You have the guilt of the woman who has had to make the choice, and that's where I see where it's unfair. It's unfairly bestowed, right? Like this woman has said, well, I could say, I can't give this child a good life, therefore I'm going to have to take it, and it's going to be a burden on me either way. And so she's already taken that upon herself, and then we're doubling down by guilting her about doing that. And that's where I see it's the ultimate, and it's
by
the
the way,
same thing with a father who says, hey, I would take this child, but the mother won't won't do it with me. So you have you have a whole other standard going on there, right? um two parents who are not in complete complicity um are already a burden on the child. And
Um,
so they, in turn, by terminating that child, are uh, being unburdened, right, of the child and of their own responsibility. Otherwise,
they are,
the
but are
child
they
as well as
ethically unburdened?
themselves bear the responsibility.
Right, but
Right. So you're
is that an
actually
ethical
so
unburdening?
that's three times the grief you would have if you had not just unalived
No,
the child
it's not.
before it was born.
No, I wouldn't go that far. It is unburdening, but is that ethical unburdening? Maybe we're unburdening something that should have a bit of a burden. I mean, I have a burden every day I get up. Does that mean I should unalive myself immediately? That I should have done it years ago?
Well, no, I think that's the interesting option in abortion, right? Because we are already sentient creatures, right? As sentient creatures, We have
Sort of,
experiences to go on, right? The child does not yet have the experience. So we are unburdening them of the experience of living, right? Which is the thing that
But is
we
that good though?
experience it and we have shame and guilt and memories
If,
about, right?
Kevin,
They have
if
never
you were
had to
unburdened,
experience that. So that's another thing that we are alleviating suffering
okay,
from.
if you were unburdened of all your life experience, you never had any birthdays or playing outside or playing the guitar, but you also never had any of the bad things, would that have been preferable for someone to have made that choice for you?
Well, there's no way for me to know that,
Right.
but
So we can't say it's preferable if we don't
we
really
can
know.
say it's preferable overall if I never caused other people suffering.
Well, then we need to do like
If I
Thanos,
have
or even
caused other
better, just
people
wipe out.
suffering, then it's preferable that I had not come to
Right.
exist to do that.
We need to nuke the entire world so that not even bacteria are left then, because that's the only way that we can get rid of suffering. Life is suffering.
But we're in hell.
And
Most people say there is a heaven, and I agree, but I think we're on hell.
oh
To
yeah.
me, Earth is hell. This is hell.
Well, I'd say
This
at
is
least we're in purgatory, if nothing else.
Oh yeah, that could be safe to say that too. Yeah, you're right.
And Carol makes a point, and this is where I was going earlier with the historical precedents. Okay, so let's forget about the last 50, even 100 years of American law. Let's go back 3,000 years to Roman law. The pater of the family, which doesn't necessarily mean the man. It would always have to be a man, but it may be like the great granddad. So there may be several generations that they're in charge of. Whoever the male head of that family is, have their absolute right of life and death over everyone under it. Kisses, stop that. Um, and so let's say that he decided to kill his wife because she was a burden, or because it didn't fit his lifestyle, or whatever the same argument is for abortion. Just didn't work out. She wasn't viable. You know, so should we say, yeah, absolutely, it should be death on demand? Would Carol argue for that?
I think Carol should come up here and join us
I would
because I
love
would
that.
love to hear her opinions. I would love to hear you tell us
Yeah,
stuff here, Carol. Get
yeah.
a woman's perspective on this. I really would like that.
Well, you're assuming genders now, but okay,
Well, it says Carol Kinzer. Okay, I'm sorry.
right.
If I'm just assuming, that makes an ass out of myself. So sorry about that. Okay.
But I think
Well,
anytime that we try to impose our will on others, it was pinned to the top. Not sure if it's still. Oh
yeah,
no, it
it's
wasn't
still there,
pinned. It's
Pat.
not
It's still
pinned. You
there,
gotta
Sterling.
scroll up. Yeah, you gotta
Oh,
scroll way up.
yeah, way up there.
Um, but yeah, anytime that we are imposing our will upon others, I have a little bit of a problem with that. And so I think that
Yeah, and
we can decide for ourselves, but we shouldn't be deciding for others. And I
yeah,
think
I
that
have,
whenever we do any act, we are consenting to the consequences, the foreseeable consequences, and that's what
I,
criminal law is for.
yeah. Well, again, that's why I say, uh, when a couple, uh, you know, are wanting to, give life and have the sex to, because they believe in what they're doing and that they want to start a family, they want to have a future, then there's no questions asked. It's something that's natural, something that's wonderful, and they want that they want their child to have the chance to, have a good life and everything. And I don't see anything wrong with that. It's just that when you have couples that might have a different uh, lifestyle or a different motive, and say they don't want to have kids, but then a kid is on the way, I think they should let the kid still live.
Huh?
Trust the ape come. Okay. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, Carol. It is what it is. It's my system. I have Wi-Fi, which is uh, it works, but now with StreamYard, it has issues with it. So I'm so sorry, Carol von Romani. Just my fault. Hey, Sterling, welcome back.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Sorry about that.
Oh, doing all right, man.
So where were we? Having technical difficulties, everybody? Or,
Yeah, everybody was having difficult,
yeah.
especially me. Though I've been kicked out 3 different times tonight by StreamYard because it's a question of my bandwidth, and my computer is older than dirt. It's a 2008 Intel, one of those Intel inside business HP EliteBook computers. It was a used computer that we found on a nice discount, you know, for a good price back in the day, and so yeah, I can't help that. My processor is total crap, and I know that, but
I haven't
I do
had
the
a
best I can.
I haven't had a computer since 2004, and like, um, no, yeah, like right when that first iPhone came out, I got the first one, and then that was it. Just never went back to the laptop. Never had a PC. None of it. Just do everything on my
Wow.
iPhone. Yeah.
Yeah. So is that how you do it now? Is by your phone?
Yeah, which of course it limits you. I can't game and certain things, but yeah, I just do everything on my iPhone, one device. And I was actually
Oh,
telling some people earlier. I guess I don't know if y'all can see my headline. It says "test flight?" question mark. And
yeah.
I
Test
was
flight.
I was on
Yeah.
Orlo's stream earlier, or I was trying to get on, and my audio was messing up, and I tried like 3 times, and on the third time it said, "Hey, um, we would like for you to try test flight," which I guess basically is like an app for StreamYard. I guess they're working on an app for StreamYard, so that's great
Huh.
news for people who use the iPhone or whatever. Um, so yeah,
Wow.
I was using like some new test run on a StreamYard app. I guess they're coming out with. It's pretty cool.
Oh, cool, cool.
Yeah, and they
So
called
then
it
you're able
test.
to test flight. So
Go
you're
ahead.
able to experiment. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
yeah. As you can see, mine is a Canadian refugee. I've been living here with my wonderful wife Suzanne now for 6 years, and still trying to get my Canadian license. To live here because of the pandemic was a big reason why I couldn't get to a government office here in Ontario. I live outside of Toronto, so it's uh, it's hard to find open places. It'll take you person to person, and
It's
to get
that's great.
your IDs. Yeah, so I've been suffering
It's
with
really
that.
crazy, man. Carol, if it's just DM me if you want to one, because yeah, I know we've chatted before. That'd be fine. Like, we have to like go on live. But you and I could chat. I just wanted to put that out there. But sorry, Mikey, go ahead.
Oh no, I was done. I was just saying that's why I have it as Canadian refugee because I'm doing the best I can to become a full fledged citizen. But apparently, according to the laws of Canada, I am already a citizen. I just haven't been able to get the proper ID to say where I live. But my wife is able to help me through that. So
Oh yeah, no, I've totally doxed
yeah,
myself online.
uh,
I'm in the Bay Area,
I'm
the San Francisco Bay
I'm
Area in California.
blessed.
I mean, if people want to come hunt me down, kill me, rape me,
Blessed to be
whatever they
here.
want to do, I'm
And
totally open
that's
to
our
all
K top.
possibilities. I think it could be fine. Like, I'm not scared of whatever life brings about. I mean, whatever they want to do, it'll be fine, and I'll be okay with it. I'm especially cool with the rape idea. I mean, so come out here to San Francisco Bay Area and fuck with Trusty Ape, and we'll see what happens.
There you go.
But
Well, now it sounds consensual though. I think you just messed up the rape part.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
I've been testing these waters for a while, so we'll chime a little deeper,
Sure.
Hey, Tommy Chong. Yeah, that's yours. Well, there was Sterling. I know it's before your time, but there was an old 1970s police show called Mod Squad, and there was a guy on there. The actor, his name is Clarence Williams III, and he was a part of it. And I was just looking at your avatar, and I thought, oh, that's a wacky Clarence.
Oh, okay. I'll check him out. I'll have to look up that reference. I've heard of the Mod Squad, but I definitely don't know
Yeah,
the
you've heard
actor
that?
you're talking
Okay,
about.
yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely check it out. Yeah, and you'll see what I mean. He had the fro going too back in the day.
That's Tommy Chong, though, right? I mean, we're not.
No, I know yours is Tommy Chong, but
Yeah.
Reefer Man.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. I see what you're saying now. Yeah. Okay. Right.
Yeah. Now I don't know what's Hillary's emails. What is that from, Hillary? Your the one of the many, and then you got all these gentlemen standing around. What's that from? Carol, I don't know.
Hillary's must have
That
stepped
doesn't
away or
matter?
something. I don't know the answer to that. Carol has an interesting question there.
Excuse me. Well, then she says below, ignore it if you don't have to answer. If you don't care to answer.
Well,
Bipolar, maybe. I might be bipolar. I'm not sure, but no. Occasionally I look at guys and I'm like, yeah, I'd probably put my dick in him, but what was the word I'm looking for? Oh, anyway, yeah, I'm more of the dominant type. So, but I'm flexible in more ways than one.
Oh, well, we learn something every day. I didn't know that. What are the odds that Donald Trump is in prison as the president?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Carol. I'm already taken. So, my wonderful woman. So, yeah, sorry. She said, huh, okay.
Can you say that again, please? I'm not sure who you're talking to.
I will do an edited video after this is over. But yeah, no, it's kind of a joke, but not really, and you know what I mean because you've been there. So Carol, no, don't take it offense. No, I've been diagnosed, more than a couple times. But no, that's just the extreme I go with. That's ad absurdum, carrying over from the last stream. But yeah.
My question.
There was a question to you, Sterling. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry, maybe you couldn't hear me. My question was, on a scale of 0 to 100, what are the odds that Donald Trump serves a stint in prison as either the nominee of the Republican Party and or President of the United States?
Oh, I'd say it's 90% deserves to be in prison, and 10% if he deserves to come back as president of the United States.
What are the odds that he will be president in your?
In my honest opinion,
Sure.
well, yeah, I'd say the odds are 5 out of 100, like 5% out of 100%. I'd say it's strongly against it.
Or the
There's
odds that
just
he'll be the Republican nominee?
a Republican nominee. Well, it's hard to say because we've already dealt with. Oh, this is before. Well, no, this was just after I moved to Canada, so I don't think I can say, but I can from what I viewed before I, he's he doesn't deserve to be there.
You're breaking up pretty bad, but I think I got the gist of it.
Just
Hillary's, are you there? Ape, y'all got an opinion?
I think, did we lose him? Did we lose him?
Hillary, I don't know.
Mikey, I can't hear you.
Oh,
Did you?
Well, Carol was saying 5%. What Sterling asked me was, I said that out of 100%, I'd say there's only a 5% chance that Trump might even get back in as a president of the United States again. A 5% chance. Yeah.
And
because he's just
I'd put it at 5% chance. Wait, am I misunderstanding the question?
Well, I messed up.
No, there's no chance this guy. I mean, 5% is not even a chance the guy's going to actually get back into office.
Really? You don't think so?
But beyond that, like, are we? Can you restate the question, Sterling?
Sure,
I mean,
sure. Because it's a
I
few
feel
questions.
like I've misunderstood. Where are we going here?
Well, I guess it's my apologies. So I guess the ultimate question is, like, is there a chance that Trump could become president and serve a stint in prison during that time?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
You can't. I mean, you can, but I think they'll probably vote in a law about it. I mean, you can't have somebody who was just convicted of treason acting as president. That doesn't work, or whatever the charge may be. But I think it's something close to treason, or at least dereliction of duty. I mean, that'll be like putting a cop back on the force. We don't do that.
Right. I don't think there's anything in the Constitution to prevent it, though.
If it was treason, it would, but I don't think just about anything under that would.
Well,
I mean, but like he would have to be sworn in on January 20th.
It would be in the name.
But then the House would immediately have to move to impeach if they wanted to get him out.
Right, because the trial is scheduled for May, which I believe. I guess I have a different opinion.
Somebody would have to radically change. Well, someone would have to add a radical change to the Constitution, Sterling.
What do you mean?
Somebody would have to radically change it. Well, no, they'd have to change the law. What is the law? What does the law in the Constitution pertain to terms of office? And if they wanted Trump to come back, they'd have to change those terms of office. He's already served his terms. He served it. It's not.
No. No. Sorry, but first of all, he only served one term, Trump, and he is running, and he is the front runner. He's over DeSantis by double. He's over 50% in the polls. he, in my opinion, is going to be the nominee. And then the trial starts in May. So he'll be the Republican nominee going into trial, facing apparently dozens of felony charges, as I understand it. And it's just interesting to that in itself is interesting. And then if he gets convicted, that's even more interesting. And could he even win? There's there's a lot of questions there. You know, can he get in? Will he get convicted? Will he serve time? Da 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 da. You know, I would say that there is
Okay.
6. Go ahead.
We were
Well,
asking
what I
these
was
same
gonna
things
say
about
was-
Hillary. You know,
Yeah.
the espionage that she conducted. You know, would she have been sworn in and people were joking around? Oh, she might have to be sworn in a federal prison, but she'd still be president.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, but obviously, and you know this, but I'll just point it out anyway, that the big difference is this guy's going to trial. He's been charged, you know?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. Here's my take on it. Okay. If Trump does end up becoming the front runner for the Republican National Party, then the question has to become one of two options. If he does become that candidate, then would you rather have him go to jail and serve time in jail and then see what happens after that? Or do you want to hold off giving him jail time and then allow him, through some constitutional law, to become president of the United States again? My answer to that is no, I do not want him to become president again. And secondly, yes, he deserves jail time. And I think he should be sent to jail for what he's done. Absolutely.
Are we talking about the campaign fund issues for
I think
Stormy Daniels?
the
No, it's
May
not about fund
trial,
issues.
it's the documents. The May trial
documents.
is scheduled for documents.
The
yeah.
documents. Yeah.
And these
But
are
we're also
whether or not
talking
he
about-
should be able to possess his own documents that he's the final authority on, right?
Well, kind of. That's the
no,
debate.
definitely. No, that's the Presidential Records Act.
Oh, okay, but yeah.
But we're also questioning is it, but guys, we're not only questioning his ethics, okay, or what he did. What we're also questioning is his integrity. We already know what he did as a president.
But
We
he's
know
got shit integrity. Everybody knew that before he ever ran. He's got shit integrity.
that's what I mean. And you already see what he did to the country. Whether or not it was bad or not is irrelevant. The character of the man is in question, and I'm saying he should not go back and become president again, and he should definitely go to jail. He needs to go to jail. That's it. There shouldn't be any. There should be
lack
any
of integrity.
exclusion. Not
He
for
should go
lack
to
of
jail for lack of-
integrity.
Okay, but that's what I'm
No,
asking.
for ethics, character, everything
For
that.
ethics, character, everything. Well, you can't charge a person with ethics, character, everything. If he's committed a crime,
Yeah,
he
but
can go to prison for that, but not just
Yes.
for being a bad guy.
I
Well,
think
what if he
you know this is the point where I have to intervene and say this is the one of the most amazing panels I've ever had. I've got a birthday cake, the founding fathers, the Reverend Al Sharpton. We're all here today gathered for your own best interests. So be well, be
oh my God.
kind. You know, try to lift a grin. I'm not going to give anybody any opportunity to say anything beyond this because you know what, you know, it's my day. So be well, stay trusty, and this is the end of a stream. But we can chat backstage. Much love to the side chat.